We're back. It's Charge, the podcast by Developer.
I'm Maria Christina, and with me is my colleague Louisa.
So, this week we have the effervescent Mahoney Turnbull in our studio. She's developing partnerships for Crowdcube with accelerators and co-working spaces like WeWork.
But before she came to London, she lived in 8 other countries. So she has unparalleled insight into the startup and fintech scenes across the globe.
On top of that, the work she's doing at Crowdcube is awesome. They offer equity crowdfunding and they are the platform to use in the UK.
So can you tell us a little bit about your background first of all, because you're quite new to Crowdcube and...
Sure. Firstly, thanks for having me on board. Really excited. I'm not only new to Crowdcube, but new to this part of the world. Moved here from the Bay Area a couple of months ago, and I'd been over in Cali for a couple of years and got the chance to jump into the 500 Startups Accelerator. And that was in San Francisco, not the one in Mountain View campus, but right in the city. And the company I was with, we were in the fintech batch. We were working on a conversational chatbot in the freelancer market. So essentially a chatbot that would tackle all the personal finance issues that if you were a freelancer in the gig economy you would be facing, and especially considering the US tax system, it's pretty damn hard to kind of navigate. So really cool product to be working on. I had been in the US, and honestly, when you're there, especially in the valley, you kind of become so myopic in terms of getting sucked into thinking that's the only place where innovation is happening in the world, and it's just not true, right? And actually going back to Kiwiland, to NZ, I was starting to realise, wow, the startup scene here is just so happening right now. Same with Aussie, same with so many hubs all over the show. So that's when I got thinking more about, well, I haven't really tapped into the European side of things so much. And obviously outside of San Francisco and New York, biggest other startup ecosystem in the world is London, especially strong in the fintech piece, which I've just been involved in. So that was a pretty strong draw, and jumped into London, and now feel like I actually know what a double-decker bus is, and I'm somewhat savvy about the cool spots in London. So yes, that's me.
That's exciting. So tell us a bit more about what Crowdcube is doing and what your role there is.
Sure. So, I mean, at its core, we are now the biggest, the UK's leading equity crowdfunding marketplace. We now own 48% of the market, which is pretty damn impressive. And just last year, over 20% of all equity investment of the entire UK was done through our platform. So we're, in terms of a platform that deals with equity investment, we're right up there. We are the guys to go to. And so the kind of deal flow and kind of companies that launch and raise on our platform is just so diverse, and which is, it's cool because it just keeps it so fresh, and you keep getting awesome visibility over all the exciting kind of developments that are happening in the startup scene. And so my angle with Crowdcube, I was brought in specifically because the company, so we're 6 years old, right? And just to give you a bit of context, the amount of growth that's happened over those 6 years. So initially, year one, it took over 6 months for the first fundraise to close out on the platform, and it was a bubble bath company. So fast track now to the kind of insane raises that are happening over incredibly short periods of time. Let's look at this beautiful orange baby. Do you guys have one of these cards?
Yeah, of course.
The mottos. And these guys did it in 90 seconds, for God's sake. So it's that trajectory is really powerful. But just to circle back to the journey there, after I guess about 5 years in, it was only then that the team recognised, wow, there's a hell of a lot we could actually be doing in the partnerships side of things. And so my mandate in coming on to the team is to really supercharge our network effect, basically, within the early stage ecosystem. So right now, we are now spearheading C3, which is Crowdcube community. Teeing up collaborations, partnerships with the thought leaders in the early stage growth kind of space. So whether that's top tier accelerators, co-working spaces, incubators, anywhere that these ambitious startups are living and breathing, that's where I'm tapping into and making these relationships happen, because the virality and kind of spread that we get from that, and then the awareness building and education piece for these startups about, hey, there's all these options with venture. You don't just have to go to a traditional VC and think that's your only port of call. That's really the scope and vision for what I'm trying to achieve with this more collaborative growth kind of strategy.
What are the differences between the options of going to a traditional VC and coming to a crowdfunding platform?
Well, a lot of these founders, as I'm discovering by doing a lot of juicy kind of user design research and feedback looping and just talking as much as I freaking can with founders all over the city, and kind of hunting for their pain points and what they're seeing in their purview around funding in the landscape. There's this kind of misconception that what we're doing is just about the crowd or just about the retail investors, which are your Joe average, you or me or your mom or your dad, or not necessarily the big dogs, or say the guys running Boulderton Capital, one of the biggest in the city. But the thing which kind of the awareness raising piece that I'm figuring out right now is how to convey the co-funding opportunities with Crowdcube, because that's actually where the value really lies. So to your point about what's the difference, it's like they're kind of what we're seeing more and more of is that companies like, let's go back to Monzo, they already had, say, over 80% of their funding already subscribed and completely sorted with all of their traditional VC firms and major angels, and so we plug in to the tail end of that basically and provide this amazing kind of customer acquisition / in the case of Monzo was just supercharging your already very strong existing customer base, and kind of just cementing and amplifying that customer loyalty within their core kind of early adopters and evangelist cohort. So in that sense, there actually isn't a difference because it's one and the same. Like, the VCs and retail investors, like the crowd, are all implicit in this model. So that's really kind of this unique, valuable proposition here. And I think trying to convey that message is interesting, and it's kind of a challenge because it hasn't necessarily been told so strongly, and so people think, oh, it's just the crowd, or it's kind of like a split street, but actually it's not. It's like this really cool confluence of what we call diversified capital, because ultimately at the end of the day you don't want all your eggs in one freaking VC basket.
So it's more complementary, it's more about complementing each other and also democratizing, one could say. I mean, by giving that chance.
Absolutely. And that's actually, if I'm asked about, what drew you to the idea of equity crowdfunding, like in the most kind of compelling sense, it's totally around that democratizing investment piece. Like it's and that's the value that we as a society basically place on that, I think, is only going to get bigger and bigger, and especially with our gen millennial gen kind of, and then the upcoming Gen Z, we all want a piece of it. Like we all want to be able to dip our fingers in investing in brands and companies that we love. And I think that is what's so freaking cool about this. And so we've actually achieved that, from the craziness of the bubble bath race, where people were probably laughing at the company, being like, what the hell is going on here? Now, it's completely, accessible and valued by people all over Europe. And might I say, also globally, especially where I'm from, back in New Zealand, we have our own one. It's called Snowball Effects. Australia, Equitize, in the US on the East Coast, Circle Up. Like they're popping up all over the world. But what's actually really exciting is that UK were really first on the bandwagon. Like this, we have to really give credit to this country for being more progressive and regulating the FCA, being like, right, okay, we're going to actually do something about this quick smart, because this is a trend that we're seeing that is only going to grow, and the market for this is super complementary to what's happening with the SEIS, for example, which happened in 2002, and that changed the landscape a lot as well. Yeah.
How do you foresee financial services being changed by crowdfunding and wider democratization of investment in 10 years' time?
Well, you know what's really interesting to see happening right here, right now, is the biggest true crowdfunding players, we're not saying equity, we're saying crowdfunding players in the world, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, both spinning into the equity piece. So for so long, everyone's loved backing their, the next best crazy contraption, hardware device thing that's going to rock my world on Kickstarter, with the reward of just like a physical thing or some kind of gift or whatever. But we're seeing a quite a pivotal shift right now, and then being like, in those two companies realizing, shit, we better get on this equity bandwagon too, actually, because people are wanting something more than just the gift piece, wanting an actual stake. And then at the same time, to dovetail with that, is the opening of secondary share markets. So the opportunity to actually, after say you bought your stake in the likes of Monzo, for example, and then a couple of years down the line being like, actually, I wanna trade that. I want to use that money to invest in something else. And so the opening up, and this is in kind of beta version for us right now. But I think, especially with the rise of what we're seeing with how Generation Z operate and their kind of mentality around money and instant gratification, I think this could be a really pivotal thing in terms of how it connects with our current equity crowdfunding model, and also the rise of these platforms which haven't been involved in equity crowdfunding, lean in towards and lean into the equity piece more strongly. So, gosh, there's kind of so many impulses and so many kind of global trends, and
it must be changing so quickly.
And so, I mean, the effects of what is Brexit going to do on the startup community here? What is that going to do on the talent we have on tap? I mean, that's linked to that. Crowdcube is strategically, we're going pan-European, and that's been made possible with really interrogating, hey, there's all these amazing markets out there. Look at all the French startups that want to raise. Look at all the Dutch ones. Look at all the German ones. So we just have to be smart about the regulation and then the legal framework.
Which actually into the right markets with the right
and me coming from, I am from a legal background actually, so for me it's super interesting to see, okay, how can we kind of transplant this idea and seed it out as most effectively as we can, by being really savvy about the underpinning legal structure here.
Which in the EU should be more or less, I mean, is it pan-European, the regulations? Should it be quite easy?
No, well, subject to evolving negotiations happening off the back of Brexit and stuff. But for example, what's actually helped us really pave the way for this pan-European mission is an awesome partnership. Back to the partnerships, jazz hands partnerships. Is officially launching with WeWork. So because they are just crushing all over the world right now, it just makes complete sense for us to be nicely paired with them, which is so cool. Because I don't know if you've seen the latest updates from like their launch in Paris just recently. They've got this beautiful building in the old historic kind of Cartier space, and which is arguably going to be their kind of showcase European base campus. And so anyway, we're seeing huge value now that aspiring entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who are already killing it, we see them desiring and benefiting from working in co-working spaces like that. And that's where you're getting, you're able to tap into really awesome pools of talent. So by partnering with WeWork, it's so cool. We're spinning out a whole lot of different kind of experiences for their members, venture labs, workshops, speaker series. Actually, WeWork have just launched. This is really cool. Fresh off the news PR piece is their WeWork labs. So right now in London Fields, in the WeWork campus there, they're piloting the very first labs. So it's kind of like an accelerator, but a more nuanced one, with a big mentor network as well. So and totally industry agnostic, which is cool because they're getting a really good breadth of founders that are interested in this model. So we'll continue to see a lot of interesting developments from WeWork, from everything from the labs to We Live, and just kind of integrating the whole startup ecosystem into your life so that you're one with everything to do with startups. Which I think inherently it might sound a bit outrageous to some people, but it's really what I think our generation are gearing ourselves up for. It's just like you don't have this kind of stark separation of my job, my work, and then this other life, and then this other life. Like it's more holistic. So yeah, that's sorry. Back to our how equity crowdfunding is plugging into different parts of Europe. I think it's our partnerships with not only WeWork but other core organisations that will make that really possible. It's this collaborative growth. Like it really is a super impactful strategy.
Yeah, so clearly, I mean, this whole scene, the accelerator and co-working spaces scene is very important for your growth as well as the growth of these startups. You're a bit of a accelerator veteran, can we say? So how would you compare your experiences back in the West Coast and to here? What are the ecosystems like? How do they differ?
Great question. So many differences. But honestly, my experience with 500 was definitely, I think, informed by the founder, Dave McClure, who, very outspoken, very strong on diversity as well, which I really appreciated. And what's super cool is that they just, I don't know if you've seen, they've recently launched their a micro fund that's just focused on diversity, which I have to say, none of the other accelerators are doing so much. So that's one core difference I immediately felt actually from stateside to UK. There's definitely not so much a focus on, okay, we're going to really supercharge diversity funding for X type of companies, and whether that's just like solely female founders or solely African American or solely whatever it is. But in saying that, actually, I have to share, earlier this week I was at an awesome summit called the SheWorks Summit 100, and my lovely friend Lisa Wang is the founder of that. They're based in New York, but now they're more frequently running summits here in London too. Anyways, we had one of the awesome ladies from Albright speak, and how they're launching a female-only academy, or Bright Academy, which is a fund specifically investing in female founders. So it's happening, but maybe I guess you just have to recognize here everything happens later, and at a more kind of conservative pace. Okay. So, and that plays out and that kind of manifests in all aspects of the tech world. And so, in terms of the accelerators, they'll be kind of picking up on trends, I guess, that we see across in the US and implementing those more kind of softly. But at the same time, I do have to give a lot of credit to just how kind of industry specific and niche accelerators and incubators are here, and there is real value in that. For example, we've just recently partnered with the likes of Pi Labs, which is specific property tech, which is, when you look into the cohort that they're accepting, those companies are they're really nailing it in their very focused vertical. And to have an accelerator like purely just focused on this arm of property, the complements with property and technology, and then kind of tapping into the VR threads in that piece, because it's obviously relates really well to that industry. I think that's super valuable, and that's something that struck me quite strongly as soon as I moved here. I was like, whoa, these accelerators are just really kind of zoning into this one thing, and they're going to do this one thing really, really well. I think, London is actually punching above its weight and recognizing, okay, there's some certain verticals that we're going to do really freaking well. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do everything super, super well.
How much do you think they lose in value in being so focused? Do you think, because at least from my understanding of the ecosystem of an accelerator, there's a lot of exchange, right, between different companies and different people who have different skills, and that helps the company grow. So how much does the zoning in limit that? Or do you think that that's not actually an issue at all?
Well, I think, a critical point here is around the mentorship piece, and arguably you choose, if you're a founder, you're making your decision about which accelerator to apply for very much based on the network that they promise you, right? Okay. And jeepers, if you're going to go for YC, you're going to get a freaking solid network, and the opportunities, like the intro opportunities there are just awesome. Likewise with 500, really solid mentor profiles and ability to tap into a very wide database. Whereas if you go super niche, there is, I guess, the concern that your mentorship pool will be more constrained. I guess you'd have to be really confident that the industry experts and badass advisors are going to be sufficient in that category. Mm-hmm. And on the whole, I guess it also reflects that perhaps this niche effect makes more sense because we don't have as many, just to be frank, there's not as much role modelling here in the UK for, hey, look at XYZ, look at this amazing kind of portfolio of founders who have really crushed it in these particular verticals. And I guess that's a market size, funding, so many factors at play there. But due to the lack of role modelling, I think, there's a concern amongst people here in London that you do have to go across to the other side of the world to really get access to that super baller kind of network. And so I've got plenty of friends from London startups that, they went to, say, Textiles New York, or they went to Textiles LA or YC, etc. So I should add that another thing that really struck me super strongly, and this was visiting the Barclays, the accelerator, which you guys are talking to quite a few really ambitious founders from there, which is great because that's, honestly, the synergy between fintech, amazing London fintech hub, plus Barclays backing, plus the accelerator strength of Techstars makes a really powerful program, I think, and it's spun out some really great companies. So anyway, after experiencing that, I was like, wow, the level of high touch experience that these guys are getting is frankly really impressive, and it prompted me to reflect back on the 500 experience and realize, wow, we were kind of competing amongst so many other companies in our batch for attention, and really it wasn't like a vicious kind of battle between teams, but I think it really helps to foster a super kind of accelerated learning dynamic and just kind of safe and progressive environment by having this quite hands-on, like one-to-ones all the time with not only people in the program but mentors and coaches in the program. So I think that's a really cool part of a lot of these London accelerators, is that they're getting a much more customized high-touch experience than they would otherwise.
So it's no secret that most startups fail. What are the challenges that the founder faces when thinking about where they should go to start their company? What vulnerabilities do they have as they enter into accelerators?
Well, good point, because yes, there are these spaces that are aligned to corporates. For example, these corporates are often spinning out beautiful new kind of co-working campuses, and this is a common trend all over the world right now, to really heighten their profile, increase their cool cred kind of amongst the younger demographics. Perhaps it's also to kind of pounce on ideas that they see bubbling up within the startups, within their ecosystem. So absolutely, I think, and that's a whole other kind of conversation, is the corporate innovation tie-in, and then is what they're doing, is it helping these startups that otherwise, quite frankly, probably wouldn't get off the ground? Is it giving them that critical leg up in order to really rise? And there's many kind of opinions on that. And actually, circling back to your question on what was a fundamental difference, I noticed as soon as I hit London, I was like, whoa, the plethora of corporate tie-ins here is crazy. And I think that is reflective of the funding challenges. Obviously, there's just not as much money as in the Bay Area or East Coast side.
That's not as common over in the US.
Not as common. No, I don't think people don't rely on it there so much. Here in London, it almost seems like the default, the go-to. It's like, well, of course we partner with a corporate, like you just do, don't you? And for me, that was quite foreign. I was honestly like quite shocked by how tied in a lot of these startups were to whoever was inherently backing them.
Right, so Crowdcube seems to be in the perfect position right now, going into the accelerator industry as well as, working with the bigger names and the big companies to help the startups, make their dreams come true.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. Thank you so much for, telling us more about, we get stuck into this little hub of London, so it's great to hear what's going on outside and how things are evolving, and how maybe we can learn from other examples, or how we can get inspiration from them. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you guys.
Thank you for coming in.
Cool. Ciao.
And that's all we have for episode 6.
Thanks for tuning in, and of course you can contact us at charge@develop.co.uk for any feedback or queries.
Charge uploads every 2 weeks, so catch you in a fortnight.
Bye!